For Unit 6, Lesson 6, we are given a general equation of a circle, and we will use completing the square in order to convert that general equation into center radius form. But before we do this, let us take a look at what we have learned so far. So for the first one, for the number one of the warm-up, you're asked to find the square of x minus 8. So what is x minus 8 squared? Now we know from the past lesson that when you square a binomial, the result would be a trinomial. So you have three terms for the answer. The first term would be the square of x. So you have x squared. Now for the middle term, you will have to multiply this by 2. So negative 8 times 2 would be negative 16. And then don't forget to include the x. And then for the third term is always positive, and you have to square the 8. So 8 squared, or 8 times 8, will give you 64. So when you expand x minus 8 squared, you will get x squared minus 16x plus 64. Okay, now let's do the reverse. Rewrite the following trinomial as a square of binomial. So this time you are given the trinomial, and you'd want to write this as a square of the binomial. So the first term is x. And for the second term, you can either divide 24 by 2, or you can get the square root of 144. Probably it's easier to divide by 2. So 24 divided by 2 would be equal to plus 12. So x squared plus 24x plus 144 is the same as x plus 12 squared. Okay, so this is what we learned in lesson 5. Now, here's what we're going to do today. We're given these expressions, and what we want to do is to supply that third number so that you have a perfect square trinomial. So how do we find that third number? Okay, so let's take a look at number 1. We have x squared plus 10x plus what number will make this a perfect square trinomial? So what we want to do is to take this 10, okay, divide it by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. And then we take that 5 and then we square it. So 5 squared is equal to 25. So the third term would be 25. Okay. Now for number 2, we have x squared minus 16x plus what number? So again, we do the same thing. Ignore the sign. We have 16 divided by 2. It's equal to 8. And then we have to do 8 squared. And 8 squared is equal to 64. Now go ahead and pause the video and do numbers 3 and 4. For number 4, you can write your answer as a decimal. Okay, now let's check your work. For number 3, what we do is we divide 40 by 2. 40 divided by 2 is 20. And then 20 squared will give you 400. All right? Okay, and for number 4, we have x squared plus 5x plus blank. So we do the same thing. We divide 5 by 2. 5 divided by 2 will give you 2.5. And then we do 2.5 squared. 2.5 squared is 6.25. Now, this process that we have just done is called completing the square. So completing the square is finding the third term in the trinomial so that the result is a perfect square trinomial. Because if you have a perfect square trinomial, then you can write that perfect square trinomial as the square of a binomial. Okay? And that would be our end game, to write the perfect square trinomial as a square of a binomial, so we can write the equation of the circle in center radius form. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's try to help Jonas. So Jonas is given an equation of a circle. X squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 20y plus 105 is equal to 0. Jonas wants to find the center and the radius of the circle. Okay? Which means that we have to convert this into center radius form, meaning into the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Okay? So here are the steps. I enumerated the steps here, and we'll just do steps 3 and 4 at the same time. Okay, so let's look at step number 1. Step 1 says move the constant. Constant means the term that does not contain x or y. So move the constant to the other side. Now, when you move a term across the equal sign, you have to change the sign. So in this particular problem, the constant is the 105, the positive 105. We'll have to move that over to the other side. Okay, so let me rewrite the other terms. We have x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 20y. And then the 105, since you're moving it from the left side to the right side, it becomes negative 105. So you're changing the sign. If it's negative, it becomes positive. If it's positive, it becomes negative. Okay? So that's the first step. Now, second step, it says here, group the x stuff together and group the y stuff together using parentheses. Make sure to leave a space for the third term because as I was saying, we will complete the square. So the x stuff together are the x squared and the minus 6x. So let's group them together. X squared minus 6x. Okay? And then we'll group the y together. So you have y squared minus 20y. Okay, is equal to negative 105. Now, step 3, it says complete the square for both x and y. So we're completing the square here, we're completing the square here, meaning we have to find the third term. And then we have to apply the addition property. Addition property means whatever is added on the left side should also be added to the right side. Okay, so we have here x squared. Let me just rewrite what we have for step number 2. Y squared minus 20y is equal to negative 105. So we will complete the square here. Okay. How do we complete the square? We divide the middle term by 2, right? Just like we did earlier. So we divide the 6 by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then 3 squared is 9. So we added 9 here. We also need to add 9 to the right side. Okay? And then for the y, we get 20 divided by 2. 20 divided by 2 is 10. And then 10 squared will be 100. So plus 100, which means that we also have to add 100 to the right side. Okay? So that's your steps 3 and 4. Okay. Now for step 5, you now have a perfect square trinomial here, which means that we can write it as a squared binomial. So squared binomial like this. Okay, so what goes inside the parentheses? You have here the x, and then negative 6 divided by 2 is equal to negative 3. So you have x minus 3 squared. Plus, we do the same thing for the y. Okay, so what goes inside the parentheses? You have the y, and then negative 20 divided by 2 is equal to negative 10. And then we will combine the constants on the right side. So we add negative 105 plus 9 plus 100, or you can add the two positive numbers. 9 plus 100, that's 109, minus 105 will give you 4. Okay? So now we have the equation in center radius form. And from here, your center would be, remember to change the sign. This will be positive 3, positive 10, and the radius is equal to the square root of 4, which is equal to 2. Because 4 is r squared. So we get the square root of 4. Okay? Now, let's try to graph this. Okay, so center is at 310 and the radius is equal to 2. So here's how you would graph the circle. First, you plot the center. So center is at positive 3, positive 10. It's right here. Okay, that's the center of the circle. Let me move that. That's the center of the circle. And then we'll have to plot points to the left, right, up, and down equal to the radius from the center. So your reference is the center. So from the center, we will count 2 units. So 2 units to the right from the center, 1, 2. Here is the point. 2 units to the left, 1, 2. Okay. 2 units up, 1, 2. And then 2 units down, 1, 2. And then all you do is to connect these 4 points smoothly, okay, to form a circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should look like a circle. Okay, let's try number 1, practice number 1. So let's do this together. We have x squared, and we will streamline the process, all right? So if you're given x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 6y is equal to negative 12. Now, what we want to do first is to move the constant to the other side, okay? And then I will group the x's together now. Okay, so let me do that. So we'll move the negative 12 to the other side. It will become positive 12, okay? Now, I'll group the x's together. So you have x squared minus 4x. Okay, I will leave a space for the third term. And then we'll group the y's together. Y squared plus 6y. Again, I will leave a space for the third term. Now, we will complete the square. So how do we complete the square? We want to find what the third term is. Okay, we divide this by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. And then 2 to the second power, 2 squared, would be equal to 4. So the third term here is 4, which needs also to be added to the other side. Okay? Now for the y, how do we get the third term? Again, we divide 6 by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared, or 3 times 3, is equal to 9. So the third term here is 9, which needs to be added to the other side as well. All right? Now, all we need to do is to rewrite this as the squared binomial. So let's start with the x. So what goes inside the parentheses? You have x, and then negative 4 divided by 2, it's negative 2. So x minus 2 squared. Okay, let's do the y. So y goes here, and then positive 6 divided by 2 is positive 3. So we have y plus 3 squared equivalent to y squared plus 6y plus 9. And then the other side, the constants we have to add. So 12 plus 4 plus 9 is equal to 25. So we now have the equation of the circle in center radius form. So from here, we know that the center is what? Positive 2, negative 3. Sign switches. And the radius is equal to the square root of 25. Square root of 25 is equal to 5. Okay, so let's graph this circle. Center is at positive 2, negative 3. Right here. Positive 2, negative 3. That's the center of the circle. And then we count 5 units on all sides of the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 units up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 5 units down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you connect this by a smooth curve and you have the graph of the circle. Okay, pause the video and try this on your own. I will just have to change this 16 to 7. You will not get a circle if that is 16. So now we have x squared plus y squared minus 8y plus 7 equals 0. Pause the video, okay, and then come back here to check your answer. Okay, let's go. So first step is to move the constant to the other side. So the plus 7, when you move to the other side, becomes minus 7. Okay, that's step 1. Now we group the x's together. However, the only x that you see here is x squared, nothing else, right? So let's just write down x squared. And then for the y, we group the y's together. So now you have plus y squared minus 8y. Okay, leaving a space for the third term. Okay, what would be your third term here? For x squared, we cannot do anything because there's no x term. Okay, so let's leave x squared alone. Okay, for y, we have y squared minus 8y. What would be the third term? We take half of 8. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then 4 squared would be equal to 16. So we add 16 on the left side. We also need to add 16 to the right side. Okay? Now, let's write this as a square of a binomial. Now, if you want, you can write x squared as x minus 0 squared so that you can see the h. Okay? So x minus 0, 0 squared. Now, for the y here, that would be y. And then negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So you have y minus 4 squared. On the right-hand side, negative 7 plus 16 is positive 9. Okay? So from here, we get the center at 0, 4, and the radius is equal to 3. So let's graph it. Center at 0, 4, right here. And the radius is 3. So we count 1, 2, 3 units right, 3 units left. I can't see the lines anymore. 3 units up, and 3 units down. Okay, just connect those points, and you have the graph of the circle.